All right. Okay, this is agenda A01-15 of the Public Utilities Commission of Nevada, present in Carson City.
Rebecca Wagner.
Dave Hilton.
And I am Melina Burtonshaw in Las Vegas. Item 1A is time for comments from the general public on topics that pertain to items on this agenda. Are there any members of the public that wish to make a statement in Carson City?
We do. Mr. Volz.
Okay, so let me go ahead. And the commission welcomes comment from all persons. However, please recognize the commission receives, do I need to do this for agendas? Because administrative agendas, general counsel?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. Through a formal process. The hearings or investigations for all matters discussed on this agenda have already been conducted, and draft orders and memoranda prepared on the basis of the record created at the hearing on the final results of staff's investigations. Commission appreciates any feedback from the public. The comments made today cannot be treated as formal evidence. Members of the public desiring to comment, please state your name on the record. Comments shall only address topics that are relevant to or within the authority of the commission. Speakers shall not repeat prior comments made during the agenda. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker, and the speaker's allotted 3 minutes cannot be transferred to another. When the allotted 3 minutes has ended, the individual must stop speaking. So, Mr. Volz?
Yes, good morning again. My name is Fred Volz, and I'd like to state that the proposed PUC budget is a travesty for ratepayers. The PUC management is,
Mr. Volz, the budget is not on the agenda today.
I believe that they're going over the dollars today in the executive director's report.
But approval of the budget.
That's not what I'm saying.
Okay, no, it's
Please
just,
listen to my words very closely, because I try to be very careful.
okay,
Thank you.
just wanted to clarify.
Now, PUC management has made no progress in collecting $263,000 of delinquent fines. Proposed salary increases for 25 staff members bear no relationship to the economic hardship, reduced household incomes, and job losses afflicting many residents. When retired PUC General Counsel Jan Cohen receives almost $5,200 a month in lifetime pension benefits versus someone receiving $2,000 a month at the most from Social Security via uncertain private sector employment, it demonstrates that working for a government agency has valuable perquisites and a total compensation package far beyond the base salary. Attempting to join forces with the Colorado River Commission to exempt the PUC from personnel administration standards and salary caps doesn't pass the equity test. The suggestion that the executive director needs 1 or more deputy directors for such a small organization with so many existing division chiefs is ludicrous. Comparing the PUC to the State Gaming Commission with 4 times the budget and ongoing generation of 23% of the state budget is absurd given the PUC cost center status. As for the supposed salary savings of $730,000 in fiscal year 2014 and 15, why isn't the tax upon ratepayers to operate the PUC going down? Why are projected excess revenues of $700,000 not rebated to ratepayers? Why are commissioners spending $50,000 on networking and junket travel when they could participate by video conference, Skype, or secure information from boards and commissions via phone, email, or teleconferences? Why is the PUC leasing up to 11 vehicles from the state fleet when no justification has been offered that these vehicles will be sufficiently utilized to warrant the expense versus reimbursing employees to use their private vehicles when travel is truly necessary? Are inspection trips by staff efficiently routed? We know none of these answers. How appropriate is $225,000 for consultants when the PUC has 96 staff who supposedly represent a broad range of skills? If all the PUC lawyers can't handle anything that comes up, then perhaps staff changes need to be made. Should commissioners have administrative attorneys to handle their paperwork, or would paralegals be able to do this work more cost effectively? Have any maintenance records been summoned justifying the wholesale replacement of PUC computers? Computers should not be jettisoned arbitrarily. Where is the demonstrated management expertise in genuinely operating the PUC both efficiently and effectively? Thank you.
Anybody else for Carson City? No one else for Carson City, Chairman.
Okay, I have Mr. Fazio for Las Vegas.
Angel DeFazio, as Fred and myself told you on April 30th, we objected to your outrageous pay increases. 287K is not acceptable. Now you are conspiring with the CRC to have your caps removed for commissioners and EDs with that bill draft. November 20th, Crystal's biennial report demonstrated a commitment to eliminate unnecessary expenditures with 3.6 below approved budget. Now, most of this 3.6% is getting eaten up with salary increases of approximately 20% for the commissioners. This is your idea of prudent business practice to promote her statement of commitment that the commission can keep annual regulatory assessment rate low and pass the savings on to Nevada utility customers. So how does increasing the mill from 2.55 to 2.57 equate to a low assessment rate? This is an increase and you are feigning a savings. Crystal's narrative, $332K for in-state travel, $13,833 monthly. Come on, are you using a chauffeur-driven limo? 517K computers. With 96 employees, you want us to believe that every single one of their computers needs to be replaced at a cost of $5,385.42. This figure would provide a former Labs Form 1 3D printer for $3,299 for everyone and still have a remaining balance. So just how increasing your budget is saving us anything? You work for us. When we ask you questions, you ignore us, and you think we should reward negative behavior, especially when the PUC is so utility-centric. The mafia would hire you immediately. They love creative accounting in their set of books. We understand padding a budget to leave room for negotiations. But come on, these numbers are more padded than the teenager's bra at her first prom. I have 25 emails from people up north who would like them to be entered into the record. Thank you.
And I have Miss Linda Buckhart.
All right, pardon me for chewing gum, but I have very dry mouth. Imagine PUC staff complaining they're underpaid because they have to work in competition with higher-priced attorneys, and they just figured out that they should have gone to law school to get higher salaries. Another comment is I'd love to have my Social Security rates increased, even 5%. My increase in Social Security is 1%, was eaten up by higher Medicare costs. Henderson slapped me with an additional $300 property tax on a modest house. My pension was up only 1%, and this hits and is aimed at people who are on fixed incomes, middle class, and lower income brackets who are just able to pay part of the utilities. My immigrant father always told me to live within my means, and I've struggled to do that, but I do it. You know, you fill up the credit card, then you have to stop spending, and it needs to start. Thank you. Oh, there's one more. I talk to many constituents, older people in my area who are not able to be here and make comments. One of them sent me a comment. It sounds like a fox is in the chicken coop. When entities determine their own salary, there are no checks and balances in place. If I understand it correctly, they're trying to set themselves outside of the analysis and valuation, both worth and performance. Good performance should always be rewarded, just as poor performance should not. That will no longer be the case. Accountability will successfully be removed. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Buckhart. All right, let's move to item 2A, General Counsel.
Thank you, Chair and Commissioners. On item 2A, this is the first of a standing item for General Counsel to brief you all on matters pending before the legislature. And specifically, throughout the legislative session on updates regarding the PUCN bills that have been submitted and any other matters that might affect the PUC. Today we have 5 PUCN bills, 4 of which you've already been, have been before you at a prior administrative agenda last summer. These now have bill numbers. They are SB 86, which is the pipeline safety matter, SB 87, which involves the IRP process, AB 74, which addresses regulation over mobile home parks, and AB 75, which provides modifications to the advice letter process. You have before you an amendment to SB 86, and specifically to the provisions under NRS 455170 subsection 3. The explanation in that document, drafted by Hearing Officer Lamojo, I think accurately reflects the necessity for the amendment to redefine essentially the physical zone of contact so that it mirrors the marking zones requirements of subsurface facility operators. And I can answer any questions on that particular one if you have any. I have none.
I have none.
I don't either.
The next item is that we are also presenting to you, for your information, SB 46, which is a joint bill with the Colorado River Commission. In essence, this bill can be looked at essentially completely separately from the Colorado River Commission. It essentially wraps the two agencies into existing laws that apply to other state agencies, specific other state agencies. But it was just the vehicle that allowed both the CRC and the PUCN to present in one bill. There are 3 specific provisions to this bill. First, it removes these agencies from the State Budget Act process. The legislative approval of our budget remains the same as it always has. Second, it removes the agencies, both agencies' employees from the classified and unclassified designation for a proposed move to have all employees of these agencies be considered non-classified. And the third piece exempts the agency salaries from the statutory pay cap. This provision was most applicable to the Colorado River Commission, as their salaries are quite a bit closer to the cap than the PUCN, but the provisions are parallel for both agencies. And I'm available for any questions if you have any.
Just a quick question for clarification, Ms. Tanner. So essentially the process today is the same with respect to the legislature. The legislature will have the final say over anything that the commission does.
That's correct. There are several backstops to this. This is not, just doesn't blow the agency's salaries wide open. All it does is it takes these agencies out of the state budget approval process. But as always, the legislature has the final say as to whether or not any increases or decreases or the budget in general should be approved.
Thank you. Just wanted that clarification.
I have no questions or comments.
Neither do I.
And that's it for general counsel.
Item 3A, Ms. Jackson.
Thank you, Chairman. Item 3A is an update on the administrative fines by docket as of December 31st of last year. The commission has imposed fines of approximately $1.3 million. We've collected about $1 million of that and have approximately $300,000 outstanding.
Any questions?
No.
I have none.
Me either. Item 3B.
This is an informational item. On January 26th, the commission applied for federal funding through the U.S. Department of Transportation Pipeline and Hazardous Materials Safety Administration to increase our visibility and public awareness of our 811 Call Before You Bid program. Specifically, we've requested $51,600 under Element 5, which is the public education section of this grant. And if we're successful, the money would be used to enhance the 811 program targeting homeowners and children. And we believe that outreach targeted to homeowners is necessary to aid in reducing natural gas damages. The funds, if approved, would be utilized for electronic billboards to display the 811 message. The billboards would be visible in areas throughout Nevada for the month of April 2016, which coincides with National Safe Digging Month. The additional monies would be used for attendance and participation in home shows and various community events, as well as purchasing additional materials to hand out at those events, such as the plastic hard hats for kids and the homeowner's guide to safe digging. The performance period is 12 months, which is from the effective date of the award. We anticipate receiving notification whether or not we've been successful sometime between April and June of this year. And a copy of the application is in your packet today. And this is, again, an informational item.
Any questions?
No, thank you.
I have none.
Item 3C,
Item 3C, these are amendments to our internal administrative policies with respect to agency travel, policy 3.1, and policy 5.2, computer systems. The amendments are generally housekeeping in nature, they're cleanup, and consistent with the state's administrative manual. And this matter does require commission action today.
any questions or comments?
I have none.
I have none.
I would move that we accept the modifications to the internal administrative policies proposed today.
Second?
Concur.
Item 2D. I'm sorry, 3D.
Item 3D. Yes, this is the Division of Internal Audits. They recently conducted a routine review of our expenditures, which were processed between April 1st and August 31st of last year. The purpose of that review was to examine transactions for compliance with state and federal laws, regulations, and guidelines. 83 transactions were examined, and there were 5 exceptions noted. In your packet today is a copy of the audit findings along with our corrective action plan for each item. And this item is noticed today for your information.
Any questions?
No question?
I have none.
Item 3D, I'm sorry, 3E.
Item 3E is an update on our fiscal year 2015 financials, as well as our 2015-2017 biennium budget update. A housekeeping work program was recently approved to transfer approximately $20,000 from reserve to our out-of-state travel category to fund a projected shortfall to fiscal year end. The Solix contract, which is the third-party lifeline eligibility administrator pursuant to Senate Bill 498 and docket number 1306020, was approved by the Board of Examiners. Additionally, at this time, our projections indicate approximately $3 million in reserve at fiscal year end. And lastly, all of the requested unclassified salary adjustments, with the exception of the commissioners, as well as the reclassification of a financial analyst position to a senior financial analyst position, were approved by the budget office and will be included in the biennium budget request, which has been submitted to the legislature for their consideration. And that's all I have on this item.
Any questions?
No questions.
I have none.
Item 3F.
Item 3F is a request from the Assembly Ways and Means Committee for an expanded program narrative, and this is to assist the Assembly Ways and Means Committee members in their review of our 2015-2017 biennium budget request. The information includes our statutory authority, a summary of our revenues and expenditures, our measurement indicators, and our budget reduction measures. And I do have a change to this memo. If you would turn to page 2, please. Under the heading Summary of Revenues, the budget office called and has requested we adjust the mill from 2.57 to 2.58. And this is due to the cost allocation adjustments that were made by the budget office. This adjustment will not have an impact on the average monthly residential ratepayer. The cost allocation, just for your information, is computed by the budget office. State agencies do not have control over those costs. And the expenditures in the cost allocation, those are based on the total revenues needed to support the cost allocation budget, and then those are apportioned accordingly, agency by agency. This information is noticed today for commission action and is due to the legislature's fiscal analysis division no later than January 30th.
Any questions?
Just a clarification from Ms. Jackson. This is kind of a standard thing we do every session. This isn't any special request, it's kind of a standing request that Ways and Means asks.
That's correct, Commissioner. For as long as I can remember, the Assembly Ways and Means has requested that this documentation be provided by the Commission.
But not, the Senate doesn't request the
We
same.
have not received the same request from Senate Finance.
Okay, just trying to refresh my memory on how we do
The
this.
memory is correct.
Thanks.
I would move that we accept the expanded program narrative as modified here today.
Second?
Concur.
Item 3G.
Item 3G, you should have a revision for this report that was submitted yesterday. It says revised at the top. This report is required pursuant to NRS 704.754, which requires the Commission on or before February 15th of each odd-numbered year to submit a written report to the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau for transmittal to the legislature, all information about transmission plans proposed. Excuse me a minute. No. I'm on the right report? I'm not on the right report. I apologize.
3G.
I'm on 3H. So we'll go back to 3G. It is still the revision that was provided to you yesterday, and this report is required pursuant to 704.7825 sub 5. This requires the Commission to compile information from electric service providers from their annual renewable portfolio standard compliance filings about whether electric service providers have used energy efficiency measures to comply with portfolio standards. And if so, the type of energy efficiency measures used and the amount of energy savings attributable to each such energy efficiency measure. The report was prepared by regulatory operations staff and was reviewed by General Counsel's office. The report is due not later than the first day of the legislative session. It is noticed today for Commission action, and I believe staff is here and available for questions.
Any questions?
No question.
I have none.
Okay, then I would move that we accept the revised report on energy efficiency measures pursuant to NRS 747825 sub 5.
Second?
Concur.
Item 3H.
Okay, we'll go to item 3H this time. This is a report required pursuant to NRS 704.754, which requires the Commission on or before February 15th of each odd-numbered year to submit a written report to the Director of the Legislative Council Bureau for transmittal to the legislature all information about any transmission plan proposed by, adopted by, or made known to the Commission since the last report. The report was prepared by our policy analysis staff with assistance from regulatory operations staff and has also been reviewed by General Counsel's office. I believe staff are here today to answer any questions, and it is noticed today for Commission action.
Any questions?
I have some modifications I'd like to propose and a couple of questions to ask. If we look at the last paragraph on the cover letter to LCD, I just want to put some clarity around that and maybe get some clarity from staff or policy analysis. Let's start with the first sentence, starting with however, if constructed, the project may have significant impacts on Nevada. I'm a little hesitant to suggest that it would have a significant impact without defining what the impacts are. So I would prefer to remove the language significant and insert may have an impact on Nevada, because right now it as the project is proposed, would have beneficial impact, but when we say significant, I think that connotes something different. And the second sentence, or the following sentence says, specifically, the project involves approval of the development of a transmission line from Harry Allen Substation in Clark County to El Dorado Substation by Southern California Edison and other partners. The project it's a proposed project, and it involves the development of a 500 kV transmission line
what I would propose in this sentence, we don't know who is going to construct, it's going out for a competitive bid, so it could be anybody. I think the way the sentence is structured implies that it's Southern Cal Edison. So I would modify the sentence to say specifically, the proposed project involves the development of a 500 kV transmission line from the Harry Allen substation in Clark County to the El Dorado substation, period. And then, the last sentence in that paragraph says, certain projects identified in previous submission to this report could potentially participate in the solicitation process. That's not an accurate representation of how the ISO process works. The project is the project. It could be any developer. So I would either clarify that sentence that's saying certain project developers could potentially participate, but my preference would be to strike it because that's not consistent with the process.
The entire sentence.
I would strike the entire sentence. So those are my changes on the letter, and then I just have one clarification on later in the report, which we'll just jump to that now. It's on the last page. The Renewable Energy Zone Conceptual Transmission Plan. The first thing I would propose would be to just insert the docket number of the 2013 Integrated Resource Plan, and that's 13-07005. And there's a sentence that says, customer commitments to fund the Phase 2 permitting and right-of-way acquisition were insufficient to proceed with transmission development process at this time. That was not part of the Renewable Energy Zone Conceptual Plan. That was part of NV Energy's Renewable Transmission Initiative. They're two different things. I went back and looked at that order, or that application. That sentence should be stricken because it's not relevant to, it's not helpful, and it's confusing because there was no Phase 2 to the res transmission plans. So I can answer any questions about my proposed changes, and I apologize for nitpicking, but just want to make sure we're providing accurate information.
Any questions or comments?
I have none.
Okay, I would move that we accept as the letter and report as modified by Commissioner Wagner today, and submit the transmission, let's see. We accept the transmission plan report and letter as modified by Commissioner Wagner today.
Second?
Concur.
3I.
Item 3I, we do have a few written submittals for updates with respect to the NARUC and other committee member participations. I believe we also have some verbal updates today. I apologize, there was, I think, some confusion with respect to the reporting requirements of this standing item. So whoever has verbal reports, if you want to come on up, and hopefully we can move through those relatively quickly.
Well, I'll go first. I'm going to report on a couple of things. One is on the NRCGA, the Nevada Regional Common Ground Alliance. Mr. Jones is our delegate there, but he's up at Incline on a gas inspection. But real quickly, the big issue there was the dues for 2015 were raised from $100 to $800, of which we'll remember we paid our dues, I think, in December 19th or so. The additional money is to, much like our state damage prevention grant, to get some publicity out there or get some education about dig awareness and pipeline safety. There has been, my understanding, there was some concern from some of the entities about the increase. So maybe in the next report we can give an update of whether membership has fallen off because of the increase, but our membership remained and we paid our dues in December. On the Napster, which is the pipeline safety representatives. A couple of things. One is the NAPSTR passed a resolution which PHMSA adopted, Pipeline Hazardous Material Safety Administration, that mandates that state representatives go to the national meeting as well as the regional meeting. We have always attended the regional meeting. We're in the Western region. It's in Portland this year in April, but they've mandated that you also attend the annual meeting, which moves. It was in Springfield, Illinois this year, and will be somewhere in the fall. So failure to go there will result in point deduction and funding reductions starting either this year or next year. Two other quick items on the pipeline stuff. PHMSA, I copied some of you on it. PHMSA submitted comments to the FERC regarding FERC's current open rulemaking or whatever docket they have regarding rate riders for interstate pipelines to begin collecting money to replace aging infrastructure. PHMSA filed comments supporting that request, specifically stating that, riders should be given to pipelines that even aren't having violations. And I found that kind of funny, since a lot of the code doesn't apply to pre-code pipe. It's hard to be in violation of the code that doesn't retroactively apply. So, but I think the gist there is, much like this state has done, given that we've had rate riders of some sort for 3 or 4 years, the federal rate authority and the safety authority are starting to get together and determining whether riders to accelerate replacement of aging infrastructure should occur. And then the last item is PHMSA sent a letter to the commission regarding potential for hiring new people. There's been a push for some states to get more inspectors out there. I'm sure you've seen it in the news. We're still analyzing that, but a couple of numbers I would throw out. We represent about, in Nevada, 1% of the population of the country, maybe 1% of the pipe too, but our 6 inspectors make up 2% of all 300 state inspectors, so we're above the average if you look at it that simplistically. And the second thing I would say is, of the 68 notice of probable violations we issued last year for 2014, 70% of those went to master meter and small LPG operators, which comprise about 0.2 or 0.3% of all customers. The commission has been very supportive of the program to get these master metered systems replaced and in the hands of the LDCs. So that effort will, well, it's not more manpower. If you get rid of the operators that demand the most attention, you can then focus that manpower on, other resources. So those are the 3 updates, or the 2 updates I have.
And I'll go next. I'm on the narrative gas subcommittee. This subcommittee for the last year has been primarily information sharing. The big issues that came up last year were the EPA's proposed clean power plan and how that might affect natural gas supplies, fracking, and the polar vortex, and how weather might continue to affect natural gas supply. This subcommittee meets once a month, once every other month, either online or in a conference call, and sends around law reviews and some news articles. And so there isn't a whole lot of interaction other than information, but it's an interesting sort of information clearinghouse. We did receive a policy wrap-up November 1, 2014, with articles, some of the bigger articles that were going to the subcommittee. Happy to forward out if anyone has an interest in seeing that, and I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any.
I'll go next. I'm a member of Neighborhood Staff Subcommittee on Accounting and Finance Activities. They only meet twice a year, and I attended neither of those meetings. During the calendar year 2014, I sent them a request concerning, to do a survey concerning repression adjustments for small water utilities. And received about 12 responses back from that. And I've also responded to 4 informational requests myself, dealing with final requirements for general rate cases, purchase price premium acquisition adjustments, small local government-owned water utilities compliance with Governmental Accounting Standard 68, which deals with pensions, and regulatory commitments or concessions as conditions for merger, acquisition, plus any related negative cash flow implications or cash flow metrics for those utilities.
Sounds exciting, Paul.
Yes. It's been a slow year, and I usually see like more than just 5 or 6 areas.
I have an update. It's not really an update. As I start phasing out of commission activities, I'm looking for volunteers to become engaged in a number of the entities that I participate in. So if anybody's interested on the list, I'm happy to, take you under my wing and then pass the torch as soon as possible. So, Mr. Noble, if you're interested, or anybody else, I just want to put that out there. And there's a number of things going on in the next 6 months that I think might be useful as a transitional period.
I've got one update with the Western Conference Public Service Commissioners. As some of you may know, we are hosting the 2016 conference. The dates have been set for that. It is May 21st through 25th, 2016. And after the Arizona conference this coming May, I'll start focusing more on that and gathering information and disseminating that, and then putting together panels and panel topics probably in about 6 months from now.
Well, I'm on the water committee for NARUC. We're going to be focusing quite a bit in the winter meeting about drought practices, best practices, and trying to share some ideas across the United States. As you can imagine, the Southwest has probably had the best experience with drought. We're focusing on the discussion with Colorado River Commission folks, how we get supply. It affects 7 western basin states. Folks across the east have been kind of curious because they're starting to experience drought issues as well, and they'd like to learn a little bit about how we have handled it here. The extent to which also the Western Governors Association will be doing, they have been focusing on drought issues for this last year for WGA. We are also proposing a resolution to adopt some drought best practices and case studies, so hoping to advance that discussion a little bit further.
Anybody else? I'll go. As a member of the NARUC staff subcommittee on electricity, they have meetings once a week, which I don't always get able to attend because they're East Coast time and they start at some really interesting times of the day. And I don't have every Thursday to devote to that. But 90% of the topics over the past 6 months has been EPA 111D, all 111D, all the, and the other 10% of the topics is cybersecurity. So those are the 2 topics that are generating the most discussion. As you're well aware, the 111D doesn't have any solutions, but the subcommittee is looking at the different problems of each of the states and seeing if they can come up with ideas or expectations as to what's going to come out when EPA really does release its final rule.
Okay, anyone else?
So Chairman, I appreciate everybody's comments today and the written comments by Karen, Sam, and Don. But I think since we went to this format, sort of open format, these are the first updates in a year. So I'd like to go back to the semi-annual reporting at least, whether it's in writing or oral, but I would rather have more often updates and just a mandatory time so that it gets people thinking about it and not just open-ended. Because I think when we went to this, I said that was fine. My concern was that we wouldn't hear anything, and that is kind of what has happened up till today. So that would be, I know it's a discussion item today, but that would be what I'd like to recommend whenever we have an opportunity to do that.
Would you like to have just a standing item on the administrative agenda, so if there's any updates at the time, people can come forward? I kind of like the discussion format as opposed to the report format.
Yeah,
but-
I prefer the discussion format. I think it's, people spend a lot less time trying to compose their thoughts and put it in writing, and I prefer that, that oral discussion. I'd like to have a standing item, but if there hasn't been any updates within 6 months, I think somebody needs to come in and say there are no updates, just as a backstop.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. Does that require any sort of motion?
I don't think we're not
noticed for it.
noticed,
Yeah.
we're not noticed for action today, so I think it would be something that'd have to come on a future administrative agenda, because I think, did we put it into some kind of procedure, or?
I'm not sure, I'm sure we, I can work with Crystal and see what we need to do to make that happen. And if it's bringing up an item at the next administrative agenda, I'm fine with that, or if it's just an internal process procedure that we can do,
Okay.
that's fine too.
All right, sounds like a good idea to me. Item 3J.
I have nothing further, Chairman, thank you.
So we'll move to item 4A, which is public comments. Anyone in Los Angeles, anyone in Carson City?
Mr. Waltz is coming forward.
Yes, for the record, Fred Bolts. Given the lack of progress, these comments will publicly lay out some of the ways that the PUC keeps the public at bay and how it conducts public business, supposedly in the public interest. The quasi-judicial concept is frequently invoked as a way of categorizing public comments as anecdotal and not to be considered or pursued on any basis. Questions which are supposedly asked by and of parties to a docket are hidden from public view. Information provided by monopoly utilities is often redacted for non-existent competitive reasons. The public is never allowed to ask questions and receive answers from PUC officials or regulated utilities during any public meetings. Official parties to a docket are allowed to represent multiple organizations and submit materials, but an individual cannot submit materials for official consideration, represent anyone else, or even make a statement for someone who is unable to physically appear at a PUC meeting. Public comments are limited to 3 minutes in agenda and administrative meetings. If it is a supposed workshop, the public is routinely unable to say anything, just observe. When the public makes a complaint against a utility and asks for a hearing before commissioners, the same 3-minute time limit is invoked for making the complainant's oral case. Would a real courtroom setting place such a minimal timer on either side for presenting its case? If that weren't enough, no questions can be asked by the individual complainant of anyone. In some, there is no mechanism in place or even being considered for the meaningful receipt and processing of public input. This is a great shortcoming in how the PUC does business. When the regulatory operations staff failed to investigate any of the health, safety, and privacy issues coming from concerned ratepayers before and after the Commission approved the Spark Meter program, it demonstrated a complete breakdown of ratepayer input to the Commission that is supposed to represent their interests. It is not adequate to have the Attorney General's Bureau of Consumer Protection as the only voice for ratepayers. That agency cannot possibly know what each of 2.8 million state residents want from their utility providers. So going forward, what changes will the PUC make in its management and administrative procedures to create avenues for public input? Enough of us are documenting the dismissive way in which our interests are treated that the PUC should be very, very concerned about official blowback. Thank you.
Anybody else for Carson City? No one else for Carson, Chairman?
Okay, Mr. Fazio?
I realize that the increase stated from 2.57 to 2.58 is negligible and has no impact. It is impacted that you had to get a higher VIG for this because of your expenses. If they were not so inflated that down the road you can claim, look, our projected expenses were nowhere near and we reduced it. Come on, we're not all kindergarteners here. A name you should remember is Ron Connect. has been fully apprised by myself and Mr. Volz, who you all know, regarding your delinquency list. Now, Ron and I spoke for about an hour and a half based on my collections background, and he seems to feel that there are major problems and major changes should be enacted. I warned you. Now, I can't understand how you can act in a fair manner with rates when you get a big, AKA mill tax, to fund your department. Sorry, this is a vested interest, and you can't be neutral by any stretch of the imagination. Now, the Department of Information Technology claim that computers, depending on usage, is anywhere from 3 to 5 years. Okay, before you sit there and spend all these hundreds of thousands, I think you need to find out when they were replaced last. You don't need every bell and whistle in order to do your job. Now, Commissioner Wagner just stated something, and since we technically are your employers, I think that the following question should be answered. Is Commissioner Wagner leaving?
Yes, the end of my term.
We're going to miss you. So now we're going to have to break in another commissioner?
Lucky person.
Oh, good God, I thought we had this down pat. Okay. The state budget shortage and apparently your accounting fantasy in increasing the budget really needs to be looked at. I have been told by a highly credible source, who some of you do know from appearing here, that PUC lobbyists are already up there in Carson, and what they're saying is so far out in left field, it's beyond comprehension. I know that Tony Sanchez is up there because some of the people I know, they've spoken with. So commissioners, you've assumed that we were the biggest PIAs in your group, but you have to understand, we have a vested interest, and right now, we have a state budget shortage, and everybody's got to tighten the belt. Thank you.
You had a question?
Yes, this reference to the solar vortex, when I lived in Minnesota, we called it an Alberta Clipper, which is less threatening. My question is to going to this national convention and failure to go to some national convention that was mentioned, and it's tied to dollars, tied to funding. This reminds me of Common Core, and you go and you sign up and then you write the rules later. I question as to the expenses. I also received email from saying that Transparent Nevada, Las Vegas schools attending Confucius Institute conference in China while cutting off thousands of staff. Please use your money fiscally conservative, meaning that we're the ratepayers. Thank you so much.
Ms. Buckard. That's all I have in Las Vegas. Anything else in Carson City? We're adjourned.
Karen.